Hi everyone, welcome to Short Reads. Today I'll be covering the book The Lean Startup, which is written by Eric Ries, who is an entrepreneur, author, and speaker, best known for his work in the area of lean startup methodology, which has been widely influential in the startup community. Ries has also worked as a venture advisor and entrepreneur in residence at venture capital firms, and has served as a co-founder and CTO of Imvu, an online social network. In addition to his work in the startup community, Ries is a frequent speaker at conferences and events, and has been featured in publications such as the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Forbes. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and also mention any book in the comments if you want us to cover and summarize it. We always love our community. Now, let us start discovering the book. Chapter 1 of The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, titled Start, emphasizes the importance of having a clear vision for your startup and understanding your target market. Ries argues that without a clear vision, startups are likely to fail or waste valuable resources on developing products that no one wants. Ries begins by describing his own experiences as a startup founder and the challenges he faced in developing successful products. He notes that many startups fall into the trap of assuming that their initial product idea is perfect, without doing the necessary research and experimentation to test this assumption. Ries introduces the concept of validated learning, which involves using data and feedback from customers to test and validate assumptions about your product. He argues that validated learning is crucial to the success of a lean startup, as it allows the startup to make informed decisions about how to develop its product. To begin the process of validated learning, Ries suggests that startups need to have a clear understanding of their target market. This means identifying the specific group of people who will benefit from your product and understanding their needs, desires, and pain points. Ries notes that many startups make the mistake of trying to create a product that appeals to everyone. This approach is likely to fail, as it is impossible to please everyone. Instead, Ries suggests that startups should focus on creating a product that solves a real problem for a specific group of customers. Ries emphasizes the importance of developing a deep understanding of your target market through market research and customer interviews. He notes that this process can be challenging, as customers may not always be able to articulate their needs or desires. However, by listening carefully to customers and observing their behavior, startups can gain valuable insights into their target market. Ries also discusses the importance of having a clear vision for your startup. He notes that many startups struggle because they do not have a clear idea of what they are trying to achieve. Ries suggests that startups should develop a clear mission statement that outlines their goals and values. Ries notes that having a clear vision is not enough on its own. Startups also need to be able to adapt and pivot their strategy as they learn more about their target market. This means being open to feedback from customers and being willing to change direction if necessary. To summarize, Chapter 1 of The Lean Startup emphasizes the importance of starting with a clear vision and understanding of your target market. Ries introduces the concept of validated learning, which involves using data and feedback from customers to test and validate assumptions about your product. He notes that startups need to be open to feedback and willing to adapt their strategy as they learn more about their target market. Chapter 2. Define. This chapter focuses on the process of defining your product and its features. Ries argues that many startups fall into the trap of trying to build a product that does everything, rather than focusing on the core features that solve the most pressing customer problems. Ries begins by noting that many startups struggle to define their product because they are focused on their technology rather than their customers. He argues that startups need to focus on solving real problems for their customers rather than simply building cool technology. To define your product, Ries suggests starting with a minimum viable product, MVP. This is a product with just enough features to solve a customer problem and test your assumptions about your product. By starting with an MVP, startups can avoid wasting resources on building features that customers may not want or need. Ries notes that creating an MVP requires making tough decisions about what features to include and what to leave out. He suggests using the 5 whys technique to identify the core customer problem that your product is solving. This involves asking why repeatedly until you get to the root cause of the problem. Once you have identified the core problem, Ries suggests focusing on building a product that solves that problem as simply and efficiently as possible. He notes that startups should avoid trying to build a product that does everything, as this is likely to result in a bloated, complex product that no one wants. To create an MVP, Ries suggests using a build-measure-learn cycle. This involves building a small, focused product, measuring how customers use it, and learning from that data to improve the product. By iterating on this cycle, startups can continually improve their product and ensure that it is meeting the needs of their customers. Ries also notes that startups need to be willing to experiment and take risks. He suggests creating split tests to test different variations of your product with different groups of customers. By testing multiple variations, startups can identify the most effective features and refine their product accordingly. To summarize, Chapter 2 of the Lean Startup emphasizes the importance of defining your product and its features. Ries suggests starting with an MVP and focusing on solving a real problem for your customers. He notes that startups need to be willing to make tough decisions about what features to include and what to leave out, and to continually iterate on their product through a build, measure, learn cycle. Finally, Ries suggests using split tests to experiment with different variations of your product and identify the most effective features. Chapter 3 Experiment. In this chapter, the writer Eric Ries focuses on the importance of experimenting with your product and your business model in order to learn and iterate quickly. Ries notes that startups often fall into the trap of trying to perfect their product before launching it, rather than focusing on getting it to market quickly and learning from customer feedback. He argues that this approach is risky because it assumes that the startup has all the answers, rather than relying on data and customer feedback to inform product development. To avoid this risk, Ries suggests using validated learning to test assumptions and validate hypotheses about your product and business model. Validated learning involves setting up experiments to test specific assumptions and using data to determine whether those assumptions are true or false. Ries suggests starting with a hypothesis about your product or business model. This is a statement that you believe to be true, such as customers will pay for this product, or this feature will increase customer engagement. Once you have a hypothesis, you can set up an experiment to test it. Ries notes that experiments should be designed to test a specific assumption or hypothesis, and should be structured in a way that allows you to learn quickly and make informed decisions. He suggests using the minimum viable test (MVT) approach to create experiments that are quick, cheap, and easy to execute. Ries also emphasizes the importance of measuring and analyzing data from experiments. He suggests using metrics to track key performance indicators (KPIs) and to determine whether an experiment has succeeded or failed. By measuring data and analyzing results, startups can quickly learn what works and what doesn't, and use this information to inform future product development. Ries notes that experiments should be conducted in a controlled environment, such as a sandbox, to minimize risk and ensure that the results are reliable. Sandboxes are designed to test hypotheses without affecting the rest of the product or business, and allow startups to experiment and learn without putting the entire venture at risk. To summarize, Chapter 3 of the Lean Startup emphasizes the importance of experimenting with your product and business model in order to learn quickly and make informed decisions. Ries suggests using validated learning to test assumptions and hypotheses, and notes that experiments should be designed to be quick, cheap, and easy to execute. By measuring and analyzing data from experiments, startups can quickly learn what works and what doesn't, and use this information to inform future product development. Finally, Ries emphasizes the importance of conducting experiments in a controlled environment, such as a sandbox, to minimize risk and ensure reliable results. Chapter 4. Leap. This title focuses on the importance of taking calculated risks and making bold moves in order to achieve success as a startup. Ries notes that many startups fall into the trap of trying to minimize risk and play it safe, but argues that this approach can be counterproductive. Instead, he suggests that startups should embrace risk and take bold actions in order to differentiate themselves from competitors and achieve success. However, Ries also emphasizes that risk should be calculated and based on data and customer feedback. He suggests using the innovation accounting framework to track progress and measure the success of risky moves. This framework involves setting up experiments to test risky assumptions, measuring results, and using data to determine whether a risky move is paying off or not. Ries notes that one of the most important risky moves that a startup can make is to launch its product early, even if it is not yet perfect. This allows the startup to get valuable feedback from early customers and to make adjustments and improvements based on that feedback. Another risky move that Ries suggests is to pivot the business model if necessary. Pivoting involves changing the direction of the business in response to data and feedback, and can be a difficult but necessary move for startups that are not seeing the success they had hoped for. Ries also notes that taking risks requires a certain mindset and culture within the startup. He suggests fostering a culture of experimentation, where failure is not punished, but is seen as an opportunity to learn and improve. To summarize, Chapter 4 of The Lean Startup emphasizes the importance of taking calculated risks and making bold moves in order to achieve success as a startup. Ries suggests using the innovation accounting framework to track progress and measure the success of risky moves, and notes that early product launch and business model pivots can be particularly risky, but also particularly rewarding. Finally, Ries emphasizes the importance of fostering a culture of experimentation within the startup in order to encourage risk-taking and continuous improvement. Chapter 5. Test. This chapter focuses on the importance of testing and validating assumptions in order to build a successful product and business. Ries notes that startups often make the mistake of assuming they know what their customers want without actually testing those assumptions. He argues that testing assumptions is crucial in order to build a product that meets customer needs and ultimately leads to success. To test assumptions, Ries suggests using split testing or A/B testing. Split testing involves creating two versions of a product or feature and testing them with different groups of users to see which version is more successful. This allows startups to quickly and easily test different versions of a product or feature and to determine which version is more likely to be successful. Ries also notes that testing assumptions should be an ongoing process rather than a one-time event. As the startup evolves and customer needs change, assumptions should be continually tested and validated in order to ensure that the product remains relevant and successful. In addition to split testing, Ries suggests using other forms of customer feedback to validate assumptions. He suggests using customer surveys and interviews, as well as monitoring social media and other online forums, to gather feedback from customers and make informed decisions about product. Chapter 6, titled Measure. This chapter focuses on the importance of measuring progress and success in order to make informed decisions and continually improve the product and business. Ries notes that measuring progress and success is crucial in order to track how the business is performing and whether it is moving in the right direction. He suggests using the One Metric That Matters (OMTM) framework to identify and track a single key metric that is most important to the success of the business. He suggests that the OMTM should be tied directly to the business's overall goals and objectives. It should be a metric that reflects the progress towards achieving those goals and should be measurable and trackable over time. Ries emphasizes that the OMTM should be focused on the customer rather than on internal metrics like revenue or profitability. By focusing on the customer, startups can ensure that they are building a product that meets customer needs and ultimately leads to success. In addition to the OMTM, Ries suggests using other metrics to measure progress and success. He notes that it is important to track vanity metrics like website visits and social media followers, but that these metrics should not be the sole focus of the business. Instead, they should be used as indicators of potential success or failure and should be combined with other metrics to paint a complete picture of the business's performance. Ries also notes that measuring progress and success should be an ongoing process. Startups should regularly review and analyze their metrics and make changes and adjustments based on what the data tells them. Finally, Ries emphasizes the importance of transparency and communication when it comes to measuring progress and success. He suggests sharing metrics and data with the entire team and using it to drive decision-making and continuous improvement. To summarize, Chapter 6 of The Lean Startup emphasizes the importance of measuring progress and success in order to make informed decisions and continually improve the product and business. Ries suggests using the One Metric That Matters (OMTM) framework to identify and track a single key metric that is tied directly to the business's overall goals and objectives. He also notes the importance of using other metrics to paint a complete picture of the business's performance and of regularly reviewing and analyzing metrics in order to make changes and adjustments. Finally, Ries emphasizes the importance of transparency and communication when it comes to measuring progress and success, and of using metrics to drive decision-making and continuous improvement. Chapter 7, titled Pivot. This is one of the most important chapters as it focuses on the concept of pivoting and how it can be used to make strategic changes to the product or business in response to customer feedback and market conditions. Ries notes that startups often make the mistake of becoming too attached to their original vision and refusing to make changes, even when the data and customer feedback suggests that the current direction is not working. He argues that this can be a fatal mistake and that startups should be willing to pivot and make strategic changes in order to improve the chances of success. In the book, Ries has defined a pivot as a structured course correction designed to test a new fundamental hypothesis about the product, strategy, and engine of growth. Essentially, a pivot involves making a strategic change to the product or business in response to feedback from customers or changes in the market. Ries suggests that there are several different types of pivots that a startup can make. These include zoom-in pivot, focusing on a single feature or customer segment rather than trying to serve multiple segments or features. Zoom-out pivot, expanding the focus of the business to include additional customer segments or features. Customer segment pivot, changing the target customer segment for the product. Customer need pivot, refocusing the product to better meet the needs of the target customer segment. Platform pivot, changing the underlying technology platform for the product. Business architecture pivot, changing the underlying business model or revenue model for the product. Ries notes that pivots should be based on data and customer feedback rather than just intuition or a desire to make a change. Startups should continually test and validate their assumptions and make changes only when the data suggests that it is necessary. Ries also emphasizes the importance of speed and agility when it comes to pivoting. Startups should be able to pivot quickly and efficiently without getting bogged down in bureaucracy or decision-making processes. Finally, Ries notes that pivoting should be seen as a continuous process rather than a one-time event. Startups should be constantly testing and validating their assumptions and making changes and pivots as necessary in order to improve the chances of success. To summarize, Chapter 7 of The Lean Startup emphasizes the importance of pivoting and making strategic changes to the product or business in response to customer feedback and market conditions. Ries suggests that pivots should be based on data and customer feedback and that startups should be able to pivot quickly and efficiently. He also notes that there are several different types of pivots that a startup can make and that pivoting should be seen as a continuous process. Ultimately, the ability to pivot and make strategic changes can be the difference between success and failure for a startup. Chapter 8. Batch size. This chapter focuses on the concept of batch size and how it can impact the efficiency and effectiveness of the product development process. Ries notes that in traditional product development processes, large batches of work are completed before any feedback is received. This can result in wasted time and resources if the work completed is not aligned with customer needs or market conditions. In contrast, the lean startup approach emphasizes working in small batches and continually testing and validating assumptions in order to make improvements and minimize waste. Ries suggests that there are several benefits to working in small batches. These include faster feedback loops. By working in small batches, startups can receive feedback more quickly and make adjustments as necessary. Lower risk. Small batches reduce the risk of investing time and resources into work that may not align with customer needs or market conditions. Increased learning. Working in small batches allows startups to learn more quickly and make improvements based on feedback and data. Ries notes that the size of the batch should be determined based on the level of uncertainty and risk involved. For example, if the risk is high and the level of uncertainty is low, a smaller batch size may be appropriate. Conversely, if the risk is low and the level of uncertainty is high, a larger batch size may be more appropriate. Ries also emphasizes the importance of balancing the batch size with the overhead required to complete the work. If the batch size is too small, the overhead required may be too high and could reduce efficiency. Conversely, if the batch size is too large, the risk of wasted time and resources may increase. Finally, Ries notes that startups should focus on optimizing the entire process rather than just individual steps. This means continually testing and validating assumptions throughout the development process rather than just at the end of a large batch. To summarize, Chapter 8 of The Lean Startup emphasizes the importance of batch size and working in small batches in order to improve efficiency and effectiveness in the product development process. Ries suggests that the size of the batch should be determined based on the level of uncertainty and risk involved, and that startups should focus on optimizing the entire process rather than just individual steps. Ultimately, working in small batches and continually testing and validating assumptions can lead to faster feedback loops, lower risk, and increased learning for startups. Chapter 9, which is titled Pivot or Persevere, addresses the difficult decision that many startups face when their product or business model isn't working as expected. Ries notes that while it's important to stay focused and committed to a vision, It's equally important to be open to making changes when necessary. He defines a pivot as a structured course correction designed to test a new fundamental hypothesis about the product, strategy, and engine of growth. Essentially, a pivot is a change in direction that is informed by feedback and data. Ries suggests that there are 3 types of pivots that startups may consider are: Number 1, zoom-in pivot. This involves focusing on a specific feature or customer segment rather than the entire product or market. Number 2, zoom-out pivot. This involves broadening the focus to include additional customer segments or features. And finally, number 3, customer segment pivot. This involves shifting the target customer segment in order to better align with customer needs and market conditions. Ries notes that pivots can be difficult and require a willingness to let go of previous assumptions and beliefs. However, he emphasizes that the ability to pivot is a key characteristic of successful startups. Ries also addresses the concept of perseverance, noting that it's important to distinguish between perseverance and stubbornness. While perseverance involves staying committed to a vision and working hard to achieve it, stubbornness involves refusing to acknowledge feedback and data that suggests a change in direction may be necessary. To determine whether a pivot is necessary, Ries suggests focusing on the following questions. Are customers using the product as expected? Are customers happy with the product? Is the product growing at the expected rate? Are key metrics, such as customer acquisition cost and lifetime value, in line with expectations? If the answer to these questions is no, it may be time to consider a pivot. Ries also emphasizes the importance of testing and validating assumptions before making a pivot. This involves gathering data and feedback from customers and using it to inform decisions. Finally, Ries notes that pivots should be made quickly and decisively. This means not waiting too long to make a change and being willing to take risks. To summarize, Chapter 9 addresses the difficult decision that many startups face when their product or business model isn't working as expected. Ries suggests that it's important to be open to making changes when necessary and defines a pivot as a structured course correction, informed by feedback and data. He identifies 3 types of pivots that startups may consider and emphasizes the importance of testing and validating assumptions before making a change. Ultimately, Ries notes that the ability to pivot quickly and decisively is a key characteristic of successful startups. In Chapter 10, which is titled Batch Size and the Agile Enterprise, Ries discusses the importance of batch size in achieving agility and efficiency in a startup or enterprise. He begins by explaining that in manufacturing, batch size refers to the amount of work completed before moving on to the next step in the process. In the context of a startup, batch size refers to the amount of work completed before receiving feedback and making adjustments. Ries also argues that smaller batch sizes are more effective in achieving agility and efficiency because they allow for faster feedback and iteration. This means that instead of completing a large amount of work before receiving feedback, startups should aim to complete smaller chunks of work and receive feedback frequently. To illustrate the importance of batch size, Ries provides the example of 2 software development teams. The first team works in large batches, completing months of work before receiving feedback. The second team works in smaller batches, completing only a few days of work before receiving feedback. The second team is able to iterate more quickly and ultimately produces a better product. Ries notes that while smaller batch sizes may require more upfront work, they ultimately result in less waste and faster iteration. He also notes that smaller batch sizes require a cultural shift in the organization, with a focus on collaboration and transparency. Ries suggests that startups and enterprises can achieve smaller batch sizes through the following practices. Continuous deployment. This involves releasing small updates to the product frequently, rather than waiting for a large update. Continuous integration. This involves integrating new code into the product on a regular basis, rather than waiting for a large update. Continuous testing. This involves testing the product on an ongoing basis, rather than waiting for a large update. Ries also notes that smaller batch sizes allow for greater flexibility in responding to changes in the market or customer needs. By completing smaller chunks of work and receiving feedback frequently, startups can more easily pivot or adjust their strategy as necessary. Finally, he emphasizes the importance of data and metrics in determining batch size. Startups should use data to determine the appropriate size of each batch and adjust as necessary based on feedback and performance metrics. To summarize, Chapter 10 of the Lean Startup emphasizes the importance of batch size in achieving agility and efficiency in a startup or enterprise. Smaller batch sizes allow for faster feedback and iteration resulting in less waste and greater flexibility in responding to changes in the market or customer needs. Eric Ries suggests that startups can achieve smaller batch sizes through practices such as continuous deployment, continuous integration, and continuous testing, and emphasizes the importance of data and metrics in determining batch size.